July is one of those months where you can feel something is shifting, and not because there's one or two transits that are going to last 1 or 2 days and then disappear. July is opening a whole new chapter because, first of all, we have Jupiter in Leo, which entered on the 30th of June 2026 and will stay there for a year until July 26, 2027. And then we also have the North nodes, the nodes changing signs, which happens every 18 months. And it will happen the end of this month on the 27th of July, where the North node is going to enter Aquarius. So this is not going to be a quiet month. This is a month where the collective energy begins to move from emotional processing into visibility, reinvention, and future direction. So let's start with the biggest shift, which is Jupiter entering Leo, where it will stay there for a year. This is about confidence, creativity, visibility, leadership, self-expression, and the courage to take up more space. But because this is Leo, we also have to talk about the shadow side of it. Jupiter in Leo can bring expansion, recognition, and creative confidence, but it can also exaggerate ego, performance, the need to be seen, the need to be chosen, and the need to be validated. So collectively, this is a year where we are being asked, where are we ready to shine? But also, where are we performing confidence instead of actually embodying it? Where are we waiting for applause before we let ourselves create? Where are we making visibility mean our worth? And this is interesting because at the same time Jupiter entered Leo, Mercury retrograde started in Cancer, which is the sign where Jupiter was in before Leo, which will last until the 23rd of July of this month, 2026. So even though Jupiter in Leo is saying be seen, express yourself, take up space, Mercury retrograde in Cancer is pulling us inward first. This retrograde can bring up old emotions, family conversations, memories, home themes, attachment patterns, and the places where we still do not feel emotionally safe. So July is not saying just run into the spotlight. It is saying before you expand, look at what still makes you feel unsafe being fully expressed. Before you become more visible, look at the part of you that still wants to hide in the past. Before you move forward, understand what is your body, your nervous system is still carrying. So let's start with the general collective main transits of this month, and then I'm going to go through each of the 12 rising signs and what to expect for this month. First thing happening at the start of this month is, of course, the Mars Uranus conjunction. This is happening on the 4th of July in Gemini at 3 degrees. This is fast, sharp, disruptive, and unpredictable. Mars is action. Mars is anger, speed, and conflict. Uranus is disruption, rebellion, shock, and sudden change. And Gemini rules the mind, communication, information, and the media, technology, conversation, road movement, and also our nervous system. So with this transit, we want to be careful with impulsive words, impulsive decisions, arguments, travel. I'm not saying you can't travel, but just be more cautious while traveling. Driving, social media, technology, and anything that escalates too quickly. This transit can bring sudden news, unexpected conversations, breakthroughs, disruptions, and people saying the thing that they have been holding back. But on a deeper level, this is also asking us, where do you need to break out of an old mental pattern? Where are you done repeating the same story? Where are you fully ready to think differently? Because yes, this transit can be chaotic, but sometimes chaos is what interrupts the pattern we were too comfortable repeating. On the 7th of July, Neptune retrograde begins, and this is a 4 or 5 month long. This is happening in the sign of Aries, and this is a big one because Neptune in Aries is already beginning to dissolve all ideas of identity, courage, independence, and selfhood. Neptune retrograde makes the fog more internal. It asks us to look at where we have been confused about who we are, what we want, and what we are fighting for. This is not necessarily about taking action. It is about asking, is this really my desire? Is this really my identity? Is it my courage? Or am I performing strength because I am afraid to be honest with myself? So while Jupiter is in Leo, wants us to expand into visibility, Neptune retrograde in Aries is asking us to make sure the self we are expressing is actually who we are. Then on the 9th of July, Venus enters a Virgo, which is in its fallen sign and very different than the previous sign when it was in Leo. This is not glamour, drama, or applause. This is about saying, show me the details, show me the consistency, show me the devotion, show me what you are actually doing every day. This can be beautiful for refining relationships, improving routines, taking better care of your body, and choosing love that is practical, grounded, and useful. But keep in mind that the shadow of Venus in Virgo is also perfectionism. You may feel that love has to be earned, that beauty has to be improved, that something has to be fixed before it can be valued. So just keep that in mind. And then on the 14th of July, we have a new moon in Cancer. This is a reset around emotional safety, home, family, belonging, and private self. This new moon gives us a chance to ask, what do I need in order to feel safe in my own life? What emotional patterns am I ready to stop carrying? What kind of home am I building inside of myself? Because Cancer reminds us that before we can go into the world and become visible, we need somewhere soft to return to. And then, just as Mercury retrogrades ends on the 23rd of July, on the 26th of July, Saturn retrograde begins. And this is also going to last between 4 to 5 months until the 10th of December 2026. Saturn retrograde is where we review our responsibilities, our discipline, our boundaries, and the structures we have been building. And because Saturn is in Aries, this is a review of self-leadership. It is asking, what have I been forcing myself to be independent? Where have I been calling it strength when it's actually survival? Where do I need more discipline? And where do I need to stop carrying everything alone just to prove that I can? And then the next biggest event, as I mentioned, a North Node entering Aquarius, that is happening on the 27th of July, 2026. And this is one of the biggest collective shifts of the months. The nodes are shifting into Aquarius, and Leo begins a new karmic chapter around individuality, community, visibility, leadership, belonging, and the future. The North Node in Aquarius pulls us toward innovation, collective progress, new systems, community, technology, and thinking beyond the personal ego. It asks us to move toward the future, but not by abandoning who we are, but by asking, how does my individuality contribute to something bigger? Where am I ready to stop performing for survival and start building for the future? And then we have the full moon in Aquarius on the 29th of July. So the month begins with an emotional review and ends with a collective awakening. The full moon in Aquarius brings clarity around friendship, communities, future goals, social patterns, and the places where we no longer belong. This is the moment where something becomes very clear. who is aligned with the future you are moving towards, and who is still attached to the version of you that no longer exists. So, July 2026 is a bridge between the past and the future, between emotional safety and visibility, between personal identity and collective purpose, between who you used to be and who you are becoming, and where you are being asked to take up more space. This is a month of remembering that visibility without emotional safety can feel exposing, but emotional safety without movement can become hiding. So, the question for July is this: where are you ready to be seen? Not as the version of you that performs confidence, but as the version of you that is finally ready to live from her or his truth. Now, let's go through the 12 rising signs and what this month is going to bring for you. Starting with Aries rising. Aries rising, July is deeply personal because both Saturn and Neptune are retrograding in your sign. So this month can feel like a review of who you are becoming. Saturn is asking you to mature, take yourself seriously, strengthen your boundaries, and stop carrying responsibility in a way that makes your life feel heavy. Neptune is asking you to look at where your identity has been and clear. Where have you been performing strength? Where have you been confusing survival with courage? Where have you been chasing a version of yourself that does not actually feel true anymore? At the same time, Mercury retrograde happening in Cancer and the new moon in Cancer, they both activate your fourth house of home, family, roots, and emotional safety. So while one part of you is trying to move forward, another part of you is being pulled into the past. Old memories, family dynamics, childhood emotions, or home themes may resurface. But this is not to keep you stuck. It is asking you to understand what still makes you feel unsafe being fully yourself. Jupiter entering Leo activates your fifth house for the next year. This is creativity, romance, children, pleasure, and self expression. You could possibly meet somebody this year, but this is amazing also for business, for creativity, for having fun. This is a very beautiful transit, but also keep in mind that July asks you to reconnect to joy without using it as performance. Mars conjunct Uranus in Gemini hits your third house, so be careful with impulsive words, Aries, reactive conversations, driving, technology, and social media. Your mind may feel fast, your nervous system may feel sharp. Breakthroughs can happen, but so can arguments. Then the North Node and the full moon in Aquarius activate your 11th house of friendship, community, and future goals. So, the deeper message for July is this: you are not just becoming more visible, you are becoming more honest about who you are, where you belong, and what future no longer fits the version of you that is emerging. Taurus rising. July is a big internal reset, especially because Venus enters Virgo and Venus is your chart ruler. Wherever your chart ruler changes sign, you are impacted, your desires shift. And Venus in Virgo moves into your fifth house, asking you to reconnect with pleasure, creativity, romance, and self expression, but in a way that feels intentional, embodied, and real. You may start asking, what actually makes me feel alive? What kind of love feels healthy? What kind of beauty feels like me right now? But before that, Mercury retrograde and the new moon in Cancer activate your third house. So this month asks you to review your voice, your mindset, your communication, and the stories you keep telling yourself. Old conversations may return. Misunderstanding may need clearing up. Your relationships with your own thoughts may need more softness. Mars conjunct Uranus in Gemini is happening in your second house of money and self worth. This can bring sudden financial shifts, unexpected expenses, new income ideas, or breakthrough around value. But do not let restlessness make your money decisions. This transit can feel like I need to change everything right now, but Taurus, your lesson is discernment. Jupiter entering Leo moves into your fourth house for the next year. This is expansion of home, family, possibly relocating. Emotional safety and private life are expanding. You may be building a bigger emotional foundation so your life can hold more growth. Saturn, Neptune retrograde in Aries are activating your 12th house. This is the house of the subconscious. This is deep subconscious work, hidden fears, exhaustion, spiritual confusion, or all survival patterns may come up. Then the North Node and full moon in Aquarius activate your 10th house of career and life direction. So for you, Taurus rising, July asks you this: what are you building privately that will eventually change your public life? What money patterns needs to break? And what version of success are you finally ready to stop hiding from? Gemini rising. July is important because Mercury is retrograde and Mercury is your chart ruler. You're one of the big main signs that are going to be affected by this, but will feel this strongly. So even though the retrograde is happening in Cancer, this is still going to affect you personally, because whenever your chart ruler goes retrograde, it can feel like your brain, body, and life direction all need a pause. Just keep in mind, this might not apply to you if you have a natal Mercury retrograde in your chart. But in general, plans may shift, your thinking may slow down, you may need to revisit something you thought was already decided, because Mercury retrograde is happening in your second house. This month brings a review of money, self-worth, values, and stability. Do not make your worth depend on one financial result. Don't let fear push you into a decision. This retrograde is really asking you to understand what you value right now, not what you used to value when you were trying to survive. Mars and Uranus conjunction happen in Gemini, which is your first house. This is powerful, but it can feel chaotic. You may feel restless, reactive, impatient, or suddenly ready to break out of an old identity. Your body may feel wired, your anger may come up faster, your need for freedom may become impossible to ignore. And then with Jupiter entering Leo, that's your third house for the whole next year. Your voice, ideas, writing, teaching, content, communication, and learning are expanding. But first, July asks you to clean up the relationship between your worth and your voice. Then Saturn and Neptune retrograde in Aries are happening in your 11th house. And this is all about reviewing friendships, community, audience, and your future goals. And then the North Node and the full moon happening in your 9th house. This is about travel, teaching, publishing, and your beliefs. So for you, Gemini rising, July asks the following: what is your voice worth? What identity are you breaking out of? And what bigger world are you ready to move toward once you stop letting money fear define your next step? Cancer rising. July is deeply personal because Mercury retrograde and the new moon is happening in your sign. This is a reset of the self. Because Mercury is retrograde, it may not feel like a clean new beginning straight away. It may feel like reflection, revisiting the past, questioning who you are now, seeing how much of your identity has been shaped by family, memory, attachment, protection, or emotional survival. This is not about going backwards. It is about reclaiming the version of you that got buried underneath who you had to be for other people. Then Jupiter enters Leo, which moves into your second house for the next year. This expands self-worth, money, resources, confidence, and value. But Jupiter also exaggerates. So this transit can grow your income, but it can also grow spending. So keep that in mind. Comparison or the need to prove your worth materially can also increase. The work is to build a value without making money the only evidence that you are safe. Mars conjunct Uranus is happening in Gemini, which activates your 12th house. This can bring up hidden anger, anxiety, sleep issues, burnout, sudden emotional release, or subconscious patterns rising to the surface. So pay attention to what your body is trying to tell you before your mind can explain it. Saturn and Neptune retrograde are happening in Aries, which activate your 10th house. You are reviewing your career, your visibility, your ambition, your responsibility, and the version of success you have been chasing. Then Venus in Virgo moves into your 3rd house, helping you soften your words, refine your message, and communicate with more care. By the end of the month, the North Node and the full moon in Aquarius activate your 8th house of intimacy, shared resources, debt, power, and transformation. So July asks you, who are you becoming now? What emotional identity are you ready to release? And what financial, intimate, and energetic entanglement can no longer have power over your future? Leo rising. For you, Leo, July is one of the biggest months of the year for you. Why? Because Jupiter enters your sign. And this begins a year-long chapter of expansion, visibility, confidence, growth, and personal reinvention. You are becoming bigger. That can also mean physically. But the important thing is bigger does not mean louder. It means more honest, more embodied, more willing to take up space without needing applause to validate your existence, Leo. But Mercury retrograde and the new moon in Cancer are activating your 12th house. So before the world sees the new you, you may need to clear some things privately. Old grief, old fears, hidden exhaustion, and the part of you that wants to disappear right before you become visible. This is the deeper tension of July for you. One part of you is being pulled into expansion. Another part of you is being asked to rest, release, and heal the invisible things you have carried. Mars conjunct Uranus in Gemini activates your 11th house. This is friendship, community, audience, long-term dreams may suddenly shift for you. You may realize very quickly who belongs in your future and who is attached to the old version of you. Saturn and Neptune retrograde are happening in Aries, which is activating your 9th house. You're reviewing your beliefs, faith, travel, teaching, publishing, and the life direction that gives everything meaning. Then Venus enters Virgo, and that is your 2nd house, bringing focus to money, value, and self-worth. By the end of this month, the North Node and the full moon in Aquarius activate your 7th house of relationships. So July for you, ask the following. Who are you ready to become? What are you releasing behind the scenes? And which relationships can actually meet the future version of you? Virgo rising. July is important because Mercury is retrograde and Mercury is your chart ruler. So even if everyone is talking about Jupiter entering Leo, for you, Mercury retrograde is one of the main stories, because whenever your chart ruler goes retrograde, you may feel the need to slow down, rethink, reschedule, revisit, and recalibrate. Just keep in mind, this might not resonate with you, or this might not fit you if you have Mercury natally retrograde in your chart. But in general, this tends to happen when the chart ruler goes retrograde. This retrograde happens in your 11th house of friends, community, audience, and future goals. So you may be reviewing who you're growing with, what communities you belong to, and whether the future you once wanted still feels aligned. Jupiter entering Leo moves into your 7th house for the next year. This is not the loudest external expansion. This is spiritual expansion, rest, healing, closure, and behind the scenes growth. Your life may be asking you to release what has been draining your energy before your next visible chapter begins. Mars conjunct Uranus in Gemini is happening in your 10th house, and this can bring up sudden changes, breakthroughs, or disruptions in your career and public life. You may feel like your direction needs to change quickly. But with Mercury retrograde happening at the same time, do not rush into any decisions from a dysregulated body, okay? Watch what is being revealed first and then act on it and make a decision after Mercury retrograde is over, if you can. Saturn and Neptune retrograde in Aries are activating your 8th house. This is the house of shared resources, trust, intimacy, emotional control, and vulnerability. Then Venus enters Virgo, which is your 1st house. This gives you more magnetism, softness, and attraction. But it also asks you to stop making yourself endlessly better before you allow yourself to be desired, valued, or seen. By the end of the month, or towards the end of the month, the North Node and Full Moon in Aquarius activate your 6th house of work, health, and routines, which is starting a new cycle for the next 18 months regarding those themes that I've just mentioned. New health, new routine, and that will be the focus for you. The full moon in Aquarius is going to help you let go of any possibly things that are holding you back, maybe routines that you've been, systems that you need to release, bad habits that you need to let go of. So for you, Virgo rising, July asks this: what future are you no longer available for? What career shift is trying to break through? And what daily life does your body need in order to support the person you are becoming? Libra rising. July is a major month for you because Venus enters Virgo, and Venus is your chart ruler. Wherever your chart ruler goes, you will feel it. You will sense a shift in your desires. Your relationship with beauty, love, money, connection, and receiving starts to move through a new direction. But because Venus enters your 12th house, this is more private. You may feel called to rest, retreat, heal, create behind the scenes, or reconnect with desires you have not admitted out loud yet. This is not a month where everything has to be public to be powerful. Some of your most important growth may happen quietly first. Mercury retrograde and the new moon in Cancer activate your 10th house. So career, visibility, reputation, and life direction are under review. You may be rethinking what success means, what you want to be known for, or whether your current goals still feel emotionally aligned. Mars conjunct Uranus in Gemini is activating your 9th house. So this can bring up sudden shifts around travel, teaching, publishing, education, spirituality, or worldview. You may feel restless with old beliefs and ready to move towards something bigger. Saturn and Neptune retrograde are happening in Aries, which activate your 7th house. This is a major relationship review. Partnership, commitment, boundaries, and projections are being examined. Where have you lost yourself in order to be loved? Where have you confused peace with self-abandonment? Jupiter entering Leo moves into your 11th house for the next year. This is friendship, community, audience, future goals are all being expanded. Then the North Node and the full moon in Aquarius happening at the end of this month activate your fifth house of creativity, pleasure, and self-expression. So July asks, what version of success no longer feels emotionally true? Which relationships need a reality check? And where are you ready to stop performing for approval and create from your real desire? Scorpio rising. July is a big one for career visibility and public direction. Jupiter enters Leo, which is your 10th house. This is beginning a whole year long expansion of career, reputation, leadership, and recognition. But Jupiter in the 10th house does not just bring success, it asks you whether you can handle being seen at a bigger level. Can you handle being visible without hiding when people start paying attention? Can you claim authority without waiting until you feel completely healed, qualified, or beyond criticism? Mercury retrograde and the new moon in Cancer activate your 9th house. So you may be reviewing your beliefs, your teaching, your relationship with travel, spirituality, education, or the bigger meaning of your life. All beliefs may return, all plans may need revision. You may realize that your worldview that you once lived no longer matches who you are becoming or where you are going. Mars conjunct Uranus and Gemini is happening in your 8th house. And this can bring sudden revelation around intimacy, trust, shared resources, power dynamics, or emotional entanglement. Something hidden may resurface or may surface quickly. Saturn and Neptune retrograde in Aries activate your 6th house. This is all about reviewing your day-to-day life routines, work, health, responsibilities, and the way you manage your work, your energy, and your schedule. If your daily life cannot support your public expansion, July will show you. Venus enters a Virgo, and that is your 11th house, bringing support through community, friendship, audience, and collaborations. And then lastly, toward the end of the month, we have the North Node and the full moon happening in Aquarius, activating your 4th house, which is the house of home, family, emotional foundations. For the next 18 months, there will be a focus toward home, belonging, strengthening your foundations. And the full moon happening at the end of this month can bring some endings or letting go of things that are in the way of expansion when it comes to your career. So for you, Scorpio rising, July asks this: can you let your life direction expand? Can you stop hiding from the visibility you say you want? And can you build a private foundation strong enough to hold the public growth coming your way? Sagittarius rising. For you, July is important because Jupiter enters Leo, and Jupiter is your chart ruler. Whenever your chart ruler changes sign, you are going to feel it, and your life direction changes. Your growth changes, your focus changes. And because Jupiter is entering your 9th house, this is powerful for travel, teaching, publishing, educating, spirituality, faith, and expansion. This is your natural territory. Over the next year, your world gets bigger. I'm thinking about all these Sagittarius rising that have come to me the past year for astrocartography readings. This could be the time, or most likely, I will say, a lot of you are going to relocate or move, or at least go and travel to those places that you say you wanted to travel. But keep in mind that July begins with a Mercury retrograde and new moon in Cancer activating your 8th house. So before you run toward the next adventure, there is a deeper emotional work around intimacy, trust, shared resources, depth, grief, and vulnerability. This month may ask you to look at where you have given your power away, avoided emotional honesty, or stayed entangled in something that drains you. Mars conjunct Uranus in Gemini activates your 7th house. Relationships and partnerships may bring sudden conversations, but also conflict, attraction, but also endings, and perhaps breakthroughs. People may surprise you. Or you may surprise yourself with what you are finally ready to see. Saturn and Neptune retrograde in Aries are activating your fifth house, another relationship house. You are reviewing creativity, romance, pleasure, children, and self expression. Are you still creating from genuine desire, or has joy become another place where you feel pressure to perform? Venus enters Virgo, and that is your 10th house, bringing support for career, visibility, and reputation. And towards the end of the month, we have the North Node and the full moon in Aquarius, which is activating your third house of voice, communication, and mindset. For the next 18 months, that is going to be the focus for you, or that's where you're going to find yourself putting a lot of energy, or the universe is pushing you towards that. So for you, all in all, July asked the following: what bigger life is calling you? What emotional entanglement is ready to be released? And what truth are you finally ready to speak out loud? Capricorn rising. July is important because Saturn stations retrograde, and Saturn is your chart ruler. So this retrograde is not just backward noise, it is personal life audit for you. Saturn retrograde in Aries, that is your fourth house of home, family, emotional foundations, and your roots. This asks you to review the structure beneath your life, your private world, your emotional responsibilities, your relationship with family, home, safety, and the pressure you carry behind closed doors. Where have you been trying to be strong because you did not feel supported? Where have you confused emotional self protection with emotional maturity? Jupiter entering Leo activates your 8th house for the next year. This expands intimacy, shared resources, healing, investment, could also be debt, trust, and transformation. You may grow through other people's resources, deeper emotional honesty, or learning how to receive more. But Jupiter in the 8th house can also expand what has been avoided. So just keep that in mind. Mercury retrograde and the new moon in Cancer activate your 7th house. Relationships are under review. Old conversations may return. Patterns may repeat so you can finally see them clearly. Mars conjunct Uranus in Gemini activates your 6th house. Work, health, routines, and responsibility may shift suddenly. Your nervous system may not tolerate the same pressure anymore. So there could be some changes in your day-to-day routine. So watch out that there could be sudden changes. Venus enters Virgo and moves into your 9th house. This is all about bringing support through travel, learning, teaching, and beliefs, faith, spirituality, and perspective. And then towards the end of the month, we have the North Node and the full moon in Aquarius activating your 2nd house of money, self-worth, value, and resources. So for you, Capricorn rising, July asks, what foundations are you building your life on? Where are you ready to receive more deeply? And what does stability mean when it is no longer built from survival? Aquarius rising, July is major because Saturn stations retrograde, and Saturn is your traditional chart ruler. So like Capricorn rising, you may feel Saturn retrograde as a deeper life review. Saturn retrograde in Aries, that is your 3rd house of communication, mindset, learning, and voice. This asks you to review the mental structures you live inside. What stories are you keep on repeating? What beliefs has become a limitation? Where do you need more discipline in your communication? And where have you become too harsh with yourself mentally? Jupiter enters Leo and is going to stay there for the next year, which is activating your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, collaboration, also clients. This is an expansion of all these areas of life that I've just mentioned. This means that this can bring you new people, deeper commitments, or more opportunities through others. You could also get married or get engaged. But Jupiter also expands whatever is in there. So if there is some problematics or some drama in your partnership, in your relationships, it is going to expand. A lot of people don't realize this, but they always think expansion, Jupiter transiting in the seventh house could be bringing a new relationship, getting married, getting engaged, but it could also bring divorce because it is expansion of excess of that area of life. So if you have something in there that is not good, it's going to expand that, and that could lead to a relationship ending. I'm not saying this to scare you, but I just want to make this point clear. It could also be an expansion in a sense that there is someone else better there for you. So Jupiter is coming to this house to get rid of this person, not a suitable match for you. So this new person come to your life. So aligned relationships may grow and misaligned ones may become impossible to ignore. Mercury retrograde and the new moon in Cancer activate your sixth house. You are reviewing work, health, routines, habits, and daily responsibilities. Mars conjunct Uranus in Gemini activates your fifth house. This can bring sudden attraction, creative breakthrough, romance, pleasure, or the desire to rebel against anything that has made life feel boring. So again, another activation of a house that is linked to relationships. So it seems like July is a start of a deeper chapter when it comes to relationships for you. I say the start because Jupiter is going to be there for a whole year. So your relationships could not exactly expand on this month, but for the next year, there are going to be definitely some new relationships coming and misaligned ones exiting. Venus enters Virgo and moves into your 11th house, supporting deeper intimacy. Here we go, another relationships house. Relationship houses are 7th, 5th, and 8th. 7th is partnership. It's the non-traditional house of marriage, commitment. 5th is the dating stage, so romance, having fun. And the 8th, it is the next level. Once you become committed, I don't want to say marriage, not everybody wants to get married, but it is the deeper house when it comes to relationships. This is intimacy, this is shared resources, things that you have shared with other people. So like I said, Venus enters Virgo, which is your 8th house, supporting deeper intimacy, shared resources, and emotional honesty. And then towards the end of the month, you have the North Node and the full moon happening in Aquarius, which is your 1st house. This is personal. The future is calling you into a new identity. But the full moon may reveal what version of you can no longer come with you. The North Node is going to be transiting the 1st house for the next 18 months. I think that is beautiful. This is you focusing on yourself. This is you expansion of yourself. This can also mean physical, but the focus is you. And the full moon happening at the end of this month is also happening in your 1st house, which is beautifully aligning because it's before we start this 18-month journey of expansion of the self on focusing on ourselves. Something needs to be released. Something needs to let go. And that could be a relationship because of the 3 transits we just mentioned, activation of the 7th, the 5th, and the 8th. And also the opposite house of the 1st is 7th house, which is relationships. Whenever we look at one house in astrology, we got to look at the opposite house. No one house acts individually. Everything acts in pairs, okay? So for you, Aquarius rising, July asks the following. Who are you becoming through relationships? What story about yourself you are done repeating? And what old identity is finally ready to be released? Pisces rising. July is important because Neptune stations retrograde, and Neptune is your modern chart ruler. Jupiter also enters Leo, and Jupiter is your traditional chart ruler. So 2 planets that rule you, the traditional and the moderns, are changing signs. One is going retrograde and the other one is changing signs. So both rulers are doing something significant, and so this is going to be a significant month for you. July may feel like a turning point in both spiritual direction and your daily life. Neptune retrograde in Aries activates your second house of money, self-worth, and security. This may dissolve illusions around what makes you feel safe. Where have you confused security with control? Where have you attached your worth to income, possessions, or external validations? Where have you been avoiding practical financial clarity because you hope things would just work themselves out? Jupiter entering Leo activates your sixth house for the next whole year, for the next 12 months. This expands work, health, habits, routine, service, and daily responsibilities. I said a lot of things in there, but your day-to-day life can be busier in a good way. There is more chances of you to get work here if you're unemployed. If you're looking for work, this is a great time to look for work for you. There's more luck and expansion and abundance in that area of life. And also health can improve, or you might notice that you are interested and prioritizing your health. So Jupiter is asking you to build a life that actually supports you every day, because essentially what the sixth house is our day-to-day life, the systems, the routines that we have. Not just a dream, not just the vision, but the routine that holds the vision. Mercury retrograde and the new moon in Cancer activate your fifth house. This is reviewing creativity, romance, pleasure, children, and self-expression. Something you used to love may return, or you may start something new, a creative project, because the new moon in Cancer is activating that area of life. Mars conjunct Uranus in Gemini activates your fourth house. This is the house of home, family, and emotional foundations. Therefore, this house, this area of life, these themes may feel restless and predictable or ready for change for you this month. Venus enters Virgo, and that is your seventh house, bringing support through relationships, clients, partnerships, and connections. And then towards the end of the month, the North Node and the full moon are taking place in Aquarius, which activates your 12th house of rest, closure, healing, and the subconscious. This is going to also be the area of life where you will feel a pull towards to for the next 18 months, because that's how long the nodes transit a house. So the North Node is going to be transiting your 12th house for the next 18 months. So this month for you, July, Pisces rising, is asking you this. What daily life are you ready to build? What illusion around money or safety is ready to dissolve? And what are you finally ready to release behind the scenes so you can stop carrying what was never yours? And that's it, you guys. This is my first time doing the 12 rising signs monthly horoscopes. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope it resonates. Please do let me know if you want me to post these on a monthly basis. If so, then I will keep going. And that's it. Please like and comment and share if this resonated, and I will see you in the next video.